Hey, Future Lawyer. Welcome to the LSAT Simplified podcast presented by Hey Future Lawyer, where we talk about all things LSAT, law school admissions, and otherwise. If you want to check out our free LSAT course, go to heyfuturelawyer.com to sign up for a free account today. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the pod. It is early May nowadays, so the summer is starting. If you are LSATing, you should be deep in the weeds. If you have not started yet, which honestly, I don't know why you would be listening if you hadn't started, you're in a bad spot. It is getting to a point where you're no longer early. The only test that you can even register for that is quote unquote early is August. After that, it is no longer early. September and October can work out, but if you aim for October, you're planning to fail because realistically, you should expect to take the LSAT more than once. The reason for that is actually math and statistics. Not to shamelessly plug our free course, but we have a full free course on the LSAT, and it's at heyfuturelawyer.com. We have a lesson on variance and why you need to take the test more than once on lesson 7.6. It is the laws of math, and you are a victim to the laws of math. You are not the exception. You cannot will yourself to scoring your magically highest score on test day. It might happen. For some of you, it will happen. But to expect on that is absolutely delusional. And as such, you should plan on taking the LSAT more than once, which means you need to plan on starting to take the LSAT in August, ideally, to give yourself multiple swings at it. I guess I'll do the very quick lesson on it, but basically it's that all of you fluctuate. No one is just like truly a 170. People are often like a 165 plus or minus 5 points. And this goes all up and down the score scale. So if you're scoring 175, you could score as low as a 170, as high as a 180. If you are a 155, you could score as low as a 150, as high as a 160. And this is all up and down. If you don't think it exists, it's because you don't have the data to support it. Because I promise you, if you take 10 tests, you're going to have some high days, you're going to have some low days. And as such, when you take the test on test day, that's just another one of those days. And if you've only allowed yourself for October, that means for half of the people, they're going to score below average. And now they either have to apply with a below average LSAT score or they are applying late. So don't victimize yourself that way. Just plan for August. Hopefully you're just done with August, or hopefully you're just done with September. But that way, if you need to take it 3 times, you have October in your back pocket and you're not pushing your life back a year. Because if you do aim for October, and you don't have that awesome day and you score, let's say you're a 165 average, which means you can score 170. If you score 170, you will likely, assuming you have a good GPA, get into a T14. Let's say you have a bad day, you score 163. You're not getting into a T14 with an October 163. You're also not going to get into a T14 with a January 170, because maybe you get it done in January, but it's too late. The offers are gone. The cycle is over in terms of the good admits. So I don't know why you guys don't do this. And for what's worth, a lot of you listening are probably, Ben, I've heard this spiel about a million times. You don't have to go down it every time we talk. But I do, because so many of you don't listen. And it's unfortunate because I think it comes from everyone thinking they're the exception, but you're not. Like, as someone who sees all of you, I see so many of you with your plans and I tell you they're bad and you don't listen because it's like, Ben's a meanie. He's telling me my plan's bad. But it genuinely does come from a place of love and that, like, I want you guys to succeed. Like, it does not affect my life either way. If you get it done this year or not, honestly, it probably makes me more money for you not to get it done this year, because then the odds of you like working with me are higher because you're like, oh, fuck, I fucked up. I should do something different. Like, I definitely make more off the people that screw up than off the people that plan well. But for you all, it really is a better plan to get it done ASAP. Speaking of which, if you want to study with us, free LSAT course at heyfuturelawyer.com. We also have monthly groups running every month. The next one starts in June, and we have a free course or a free class once a month. It's usually a party. I think we're going to do the one this month on how to go to Big Law. Actually, that brings me to a funny email I got. So we're going to read that just because this is, and I actually am pretty sure I know who this is, but we're going to read it anyways. So this is submitted via the help form on our website from Concerned Citizen. And they said, subject, reevaluate your harmful approach to the legal profession. So sounds like we got a super fan coming in. And they write, upon reviewing your business's post on Instagram, I feel compelled to share some necessary feedback. So first off, cut that. There's no need to say that you feel compelled to share some necessary feedback. That's why you're submitting the contact form. You can just cut that first sentence. So a writing tip for our super fan here, that was an unnecessary sentence. Don't say you feel compelled, just share the feedback. Get into it, speak. But let's let them have the floor. I believe your approach may be unintentionally harmful or harming the legal profession by instilling a transactional, reductive way of thinking among prospective law students. So first off, I believe kind of softens what you're saying. When you say I believe, you could just say what you think. Like, hey, your approach may be intentionally harming. The I believe is unnecessary. You're adding a verb and a subject and making the sentence more of a compound sentence where it doesn't need to. So I'm trying to, help you out because I imagine, if you're going off to the school that I think you are, you're going to need to clean up your writing. Further, just say what you think is harmful. We are 2 sentences in and actually 1 paragraph in. You did use short paragraphs, which is nicely. This is multiple paragraphs for all of you listening. But just cut to the point. Like spit it out. What's your point? But either way, they're saying I have a transactional reductive way of thinking, which I mean, maybe. I think we are very focused on making sure that you actually make an investment proper. I view education as an investment. I guess theoretically you could view it in other ways. I don't. I think education is very much so an investment in your future, and you should do it if it makes sense, and you shouldn't if it doesn't. And if that's transactional, then bingo, you got me. I am transactional and I'm reductive because I don't I don't really think of legal law schools as like these higher institutions of goodness and learning. I think that's marketing bullshit. I think you may have like drank the Kool-Aid. I think they're training you to be a lawyer, and there's different kinds of lawyers. There are lawyers that fight the good fight and make less money, trying to save the otters from British Petroleum and their oil. There are also the lawyers that make a lot of money arguing that the stupid otter shouldn't have fucking been there in the first place, and it's not our fault that the otter got oil on him. Like our rig was there first. Stupid otter could have gone anywhere. He chose to go on our oil, and if that's an argument you want to make, you might make a lot of money. I don't really think that either is morally evil. You seem to insist that, big law is evil. I don't feel that way. I don't think anything's wrong for those of you that are going to big law to make money. I think it's largely transactional. It is what it is. And I think big law actually does a lot of good in the world. I think you can also point to like bad things they've done. Don't get me wrong. Like we're not going to say big law is like totally defensible when they like defend some African warlord or whatever. Also, I don't think that like writing up transactions for a pharmaceutical company is like next to Hitler on the scale of things. I know some people do. I don't think that's true. Anyways, let's continue. They say the way you evaluate school choice is primarily through the lens of prestigious, in scare quotes, job placement is concerning, especially during a time when our society is reconsidering the ethics of big law. And I will tell you that you need to get off the internet. You are too on TikTok. You are too on Reddit. This isn't real life. Society's not reconsidering the ethics of big law. 19-year-olds with nothing going on are reconsidering the ethics of big law. And I'm not to say that big law doesn't have concerns. People like, because it's with all things in life. Like there's a lot of gray in things. Are there things that big law does poorly? Like one of the things they've been really hammered for is a lot of them made various deals with the Trump administration in terms of litigation, because I think Trump had threatened to go after them or to go after contracts where if you're a big firm, the big firms depend on revenue. Like for those of you that are not business people, revenue means money coming in. You can't operate a big company if you don't have money coming in. Like that's how it works, because you have all these associates that are very highly paid. How do you pay their salaries if money is not coming in? You can't do it. And a lot of their revenue sources are these contracts, and many of these contracts have relations to the government. And I believe with the Trump, and for what's worth, I'm like very much the caveat because like I am not super in touch with this stuff. I just know it very tangentially. But my understanding is that the Trump administration said that if you work with one of these firms that does not capitulate and basically follow various demands, I think in regards to DEI as well as a few other things, but like once again, I'm not super in touch with this, that the Trump administration would make sure that those people would not get their funding. And then that kind of cuts off funding from the firms too, because many of those, companies that, or not companies, but organizations that would have gotten funding from the government, now they don't want to lose their funding, so they don't work with the firm. And as such, the firm loses revenue in kind of an indirect way. So in a weird way, it was the government kind of like threatening to cut off money from the firms, which I think just kind of identifies that there's a bit of a parasite relationship going on in the first place. I think if you need government contracts to exist, you probably shouldn't exist. That's just my take on it. But also, like, we're not here for Ben's takes on the role of government. We're here for our super fan. So let's see what else our super fan says in my fun little voice, Mickey Mouse style. Oh, sorry. I guess I should also continue more. As far as prestigious job placement, I don't know. I mean, maybe I focus more on big law than others do, but I think that's more so that other people do a disservice in not talking about it. Because the reason many people go to law school is for financial security and high incomes. And the only true way to that is through big law. So, I mean, I'm not here to say that anyone should or should not do big law. It's your guys' decision to make. What I am here to say is if you're going to make the big money, big law is the path. And you're not going to do it saving the turtles. So if that is like what you're criticizing, then sure, like guilty as charged. However, I think you're saying that like I'm saying that you should go to big law period or else you're a bad person. It's also funny, upon the day, this was sent a while ago, like, a couple of weeks ago, but upon the day of them submitting it, I did go back and look through our Instagram because that's where they said they got most of this content from as opposed to the podcast. And I read back through out of my last 30 posts, how many even reference big law or prestigious positions, and there were 2 out of 30. So I think this is someone who I'm pretty sure I know who they are. I don't have definitive. It's one of the people I called a scammer on a couple episodes back. I'm pretty sure that this is who it is. Basically, because I emailed them and asked, hey, what is your deal in terms of like, how did you verify that score that you say you have that there's no actual data on? For those of you that are curious, this is the LSAT guru effect. It's not Ellen. Ellen's too busy. She's in her own world. She's not focusing on like little LSAT podcasts. But this person, I'm pretty sure is, and got kind of rattled by that email I sent him. At least this is who I think it is. Like for those of you that want to do the research and like look it up, it's not that hard, but it is funny. I also don't have definitive proof that this is who it is. My circumstantial evidence is that, for one, this person is very anti-big law from what I've been able to see. Further, they sent it right after I emailed them. So, and by right after, I mean the day after. And they sent it from an anonymous email. And also, we don't get a lot of these emails. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Anyways, because I just emailed them asking, like, hey, where'd you get that evidence from? I'm very curious. If you have access to data I don't, you're making marketing claims that you're the only person of a certain ethnic group to score 180. Do you have verifiable data for that? To which I never heard back. There was no response, which is fine. They also took back where I found their email from because it was their personal email. I just found it on their YouTube. It wasn't that hard to find. So I was like, hey. And then, but now if you go on their YouTube, you can't find their email, which is kind of funny. So I think they did recognize where I got it from. Anyways, let's continue. Your approach seems to dismiss public sector and nonprofit jobs. I don't know where you got that from. I think that's you assuming a lot here, which don't do that in lawyering. You're going to get your booty smacked if you assume things about people. I don't dismiss the public sector and nonprofit. I just dismiss that they have financial freedom and that you're going to make a lot of money doing them, which if that's your vibe, if you want to like fight the good fight, more power to you. Just minimize debt and don't worry about the procedure of the school you go to. However, I talk to a lot of people thinking they're going to make bank working as a DA. And I'm just here to dispel that myth because I don't want people... I'm just not about selling people dreams. And if you're going to tell people that they can fight the good fight and be making Harvey Specter money, that's selling people dreams. And I'm not going to do that. As far as like whether people want to fight the good fight or make the big money, I don't care. Like genuinely, I don't care, which is why I'm so kind of confused. But, well, I'm not confused. You felt attacked and you viewed me as like big law propaganda boy. So you hit me with your stuff, which I think just indicates that you hadn't really considered who I am, which is also fine because like, I don't care. Everyone has a perception of everyone. And we all have incomplete perceptions. I'm sure I have an incomplete perception of you. I think you're a scammer. I think that what you do is disgusting. And I know that's not who you are as a person entirely. It's part of who you are. And it's, one, backed by evidence, but it is what it is. Anyways, let's continue. And they continue. That often depend on motivation, networking, and other nuances between schools. Yeah, I don't know where you're getting that from, but whatever. They continue. By encouraging students to focus heavily on GPAs and school rankings, you may be, that's funny. I literally talked about how the rankings are stupid. So no. You may be reinforcing the very mindset that leads to misaligned expectations about the legal profession. That's so funny that you say that I'm the one leading to misaligned expectations because I'm pretty sure that's the thing I fight against the most. Because once again, I'm not here to say what you should or should not do. What I'm here to say is you want to be in reality. And if you want to fight the good fight, that's once again totally fine, but you want to know what that actually is. You should know how much these lawyers actually make. If you want to make big money, you should also know what that requires and that's going to require a serious sacrifice of your hours. You're going to spend a lot of time in the office. And it's a very well-paid career that is incredibly lucrative. Like if you're listening and you're a smart person and you are a workaholic and you want to guarantee that you will make 7 figures one day, there is not a better way than just grinding in big law and being like, I'm going to make partner and I'm going to do everything necessary. I'm going to sacrifice my friends, my family, my hobbies, but I'm going to be a legal monster. You can make crazy money. I wouldn't do that. Like, honestly, that's not the life I want for myself. It's why I'm here as opposed to doing that. I would almost certainly make more money if I went to big law, which also for what it's worth, like now I have a huge opportunity cost if I wanted to change paths, which I don't want to, but even if I did, it would be a headache. But anyways, it's so funny because like misaligned expectations. I'm like, the whole thing is we're all about transparency. I think that you get misaligned expectations elsewhere. Anyways, they say I encourage you to reflect on your approach. I just did. I didn't find your argument compelling, but it was interesting. I'd be interested to talk to you for what it's worth. So like, I will know that I'll only do it if I can record it because I only want to do it for content. I don't actually care about talking to you that much. I just think it'll be funny. Partly because I don't think these are very well-baked arguments. I'm not saying that you can't have like legitimate points of disagreement. You most certainly can. And if you want to come on and argue like, here's why big law is evil, that is an argument you can for sure make. And I'll probably go like, I didn't know that. Like, that's what's up. That's crazy. Also, I have not heard those arguments, at least in a compelling way yet. What I see is I often see, and this is a broader, I'd say, American point. There's a lot of people that seem to resent wealth in our country. And it's actually like kind of a populist movement largely, but, and I say populist is a bit of a bad word. I don't like populist movements, but partly because, not to like political philosophy it, but I think it's the general idea of it's not your fault, it's someone else's fault. And you see this on both sides of the political spectrum. Because for what it's worth, you guys know I make fun of red team and blue team. On the left, I kind of see it with the rich, like the rich are the bad. That's the populism I'm referring to here. This is someone who I believe very involved with like the Bernie boys, which I'm not the biggest fan of just because not that I'm necessarily against, like I want everyone to do better, but I think the aspersion that it's someone else's fault why you're not doing well is very disempowering and negative. And don't get me wrong, you right-wing people, you are not immune to this either. You've got your dislike for immigrants, which I just don't understand either. But either way, like the fundamental, and this is, I'd say, just a truth that I really live by, is that if you see an issue in your life or something that you want to change, you have to be the change. You cannot wait for someone else to save you, and to blame it on a different group of people is just such loser shit. Like if you're like, my life sucks because of X people, I don't know. Like if you live that way, that can certainly feel like reality to you. It's also the most disempowering way to live life. So it's really sad when people do that. And I think part of this is that's where a lot of the whole reason I got here is because that's where I see a lot of the big law energy coming from, or the anti-big law, is it's not necessarily what they're doing wrong, because there's a lot of stuff they do wrong. Like I'm willing to concede that. I don't really know that much, so like I'm totally over it. But most of it just appears to be like they're rich, therefore bad. And that's an argument that I'm just not going to buy, because I just don't think rich people are evil. That's not something I think. I also don't think poor people are evil. I think wealth is kind of morally neutral. I think rich people can be great. I think they can be terrible, and vice versa for poor people as well. But that's why I like don't have the dislike to big law that a lot of people do. So, and as far as like populism, like I really encourage you all. I know a lot of people, populism is really growing. So I imagine some of you identify with that either on the left or the right, whether it be like kind of the Bernie or the MAGA. I would just encourage us to not do that. Just for, I see it as very dangerous to society in terms of like the best way to be a successful and contributing member of society is to focus on your life and focus on what you can do. And the worst way to fix your life is to blame others. Even if it's true, it's so disempowering and it doesn't do anything for you. So like, so what? Let's say it is rich people's fault, like, which it's not, but let's say it is. How do you fix that? Like, you have to still take action. So anyways, let's continue. They say consider inviting students to discuss a more holistic assessment of what schools offer. No, because the holistic assessment is marketing bullshit to get you to put yourself in 6 figures of debt. I'm not going to tell someone that they should go to a school because of their immigration clinic. That's like so dumb. Like I'm not going to do that. Partly because you can go to any law school and be an immigration attorney. So the fact that some school has an immigration clinic and is going to try to charge you $200K is not a good reason to attend that school. But they continue, and how they might fit individual needs rather than simply saying something like X school is a no-brainer over Y because it has only plus XX% less students enter big law or federal clerkships. Well, I mean, some schools are no-brainers without an example that you can point to. Like, it's funny, you're attacking me on things I've said without actually saying anything I've said, which is a very bad argument. Like, if you're going to make an argument, at least cite examples. It's pretty weak shit to say, like, X school is a no-brainer over Y, because, like, I will say that over some schools. If I say Harvard is a no-brainer over Cooley, which is like a terrible law school in Minnesota, like, yeah, no shit, Harvard's a no-brainer over Cooley. If the argument is like, hey, is Arizona State for free a no-brainer over like UCLA if your goal is to do public interest, I would argue like you should go to Arizona State. Like the idea that I just recommend people, I mean, it's so funny. I often tell people to go for free if they're not going for big law. Like my whole flow chart is if you're going to make money, go to big law and go to a school that can place you there. If you're not going to make money, go for free. And it's so funny because it's like, I don't know. Anyways, so you're stupid for the person who submitted this. You didn't take a very serious approach. If you're also who I think you are, which maybe this person's just catching strays because this is just a total coincidence. It's odd. I don't think it is a coincidence. I'm pretty sure this is who I think it is. I'd say like 80-90% confidence. I'm not sure. Like I don't have actual evidence. I didn't do my IP analysis that I sometimes do, partly because I couldn't figure it on our new web hosting, and it was like I didn't really want to like dive in. When I couldn't find it in 30 seconds, I was like, yeah, it's not really worth my time. Anyways, the basic idea is like verdict. I don't know, maybe. But you certainly don't know me well enough to make a critique. So anyways, and if you are who I think you are, you're a scammer and you're gross and like shut the fuck up. Cause like those in glass houses, like it's funny. You're gonna say that I'm a bad person for informing people about job opportunities, but you're straight up like lying to people and using like overwhelming social proof to get people to sign up for your shit. Like it is what it is, but I don't know. I guess we have different ethical concerns, and under my ethical concerns, I legitimately think you're a bad person based on what you do, but also, could just be catching strays. Oh, okay, it's cool. So that's that. It wasn't really LSAT. That was kind of just more me. But let's talk through a few LSAT questions I had emailed in. So the first question is, well, they're actually both from people in class. One of them said, hey, Ben, what would you say is the best way to review an RC section? Because I find it incredibly time consuming to watch all 4 explanation videos. Should I be doing review or only watching the video of the one I struggled with the most? So if you work with us, we have explanation videos for all the reading comp passages, or at least for most of them. We're still rounding out a few of the explanations. But basically, this is someone in class. They do a section. They miss a question or two. Well, actually, I talked to her about it. They miss questions all throughout the passage. And as such, reviewing is incredibly time intensive because watching the explanation of me talking through the passage is typically about 10 minutes. There's a lot of value in that because usually where you guys mess up is in that passage in the first place, in that you did not comprehend to the level that you need to. So typically, I would say, yeah, watch the video for passages that you sucked at. And by that, I mean miss like 2 or more questions. If you only missed 1 question, look at that question, see what went wrong. Because you probably understood the passage broadly, but you just misunderstood something. And then further, let's say you are missing 2 to 3 questions or more per passage. If that is the case, then you shouldn't be doing 4 passages because you're not doing them well enough. This is a very common LSAT problem, but it's one that really sets people back, which is that they do all the questions at a not 100% level. And in doing so, they never allow themselves to improve. Because if you do all the questions and kind of get to an answer, you'll get a decent amount right, kind of through luck, but you'll also miss a good amount in that you didn't give it the effort necessary to truly solve it. But without solving it, you can't really learn from it because you didn't really get it right, nor did you really get it wrong because the understanding never got to a point of I picked an answer. So if you are finding yourself missing more than 2 to 3 questions or 2 questions or more on more than like 2 passages, you got to do fewer passages because like it's better for you to do 3 passages and solve them well than to do all 4 and, for lack of a better term, like kind of half-ass it. So I would make sure that you're actually doing it. Then as far as the review process, well, then you can really watch the videos on the ones you bombed. Because let's say you did a passage and you missed like 4 questions, you really should watch the explanation video of like what happened, like how did I react to it when I was reading it. Because once again, when you guys are missing questions in reading comp, it is almost always because you are not reading properly. It's not because the questions are getting you with traps or tricks. It's because you didn't understand what you read. And as such, you have no business answering the questions. Because if you don't know what they said, how are you supposed to answer them? Like, how could you possibly answer questions on source material that you did not understand? What else? Then further, on the question you did miss, if you just missed 1 or 2, then you can just look into the individual question. You don't have to see the whole passage because if you did overall understand the passage, that's not a subjective assessment. That is a, did you get the questions right? Because occasionally someone will go, oh, I did understand it, and then I missed 5 questions, to which my retort is, no, you did not understand it. You bombed it. You need to go back and actually understand what you read. So the basic gist of it is, one, the first question is always, how many are you missing? Could you possibly do fewer passages, that is? Because if you are doing fewer passages, you're going to give yourself more time to actually work with them and cook with them. Alternatively, if you are only missing a couple, well, then you don't have to watch the whole video. You just need to look to the specific part of the question. Just skip ahead to like the question you missed, watch the talk through on that, and you'll be good to go. Alrighty, cool. Then I had another question. This is it's a discouraging one. And they said, hey, Ben, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying your weekend, which, just a side note, you guys don't need to like say, I hope you're doing well. You can just cut that from your community. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this because maybe in a corporate setting, you'll get like yelled at if you don't do that. But like, you don't have to say that. Like, you can just say like, what's up? They continue. I'm feeling somewhat discouraged. I was scoring between 19 to 22 consistently on logical reasoning. So already pause occasionally. And I think this is what this person is. People view that as more of a win than it is. Because not getting 19 to 22 right is nice. It means you made progress, but it still means that you're not quite where you need to be. Because that means you're missing between 6 to 4 questions, which means those are questions you are definitely getting, like you definitely don't understand those. There's also questions you're getting right by luck. Because if you're missing 6 to 4, that doesn't mean you perfectly understood every other question. That means you got the right answer on the other questions, which means some of them you got as a bit of a fluke, which means I would guess you're missing about double, or you're not understanding about double the questions that you're missing. So if you're missing 6 to 4 questions, that means you're not understanding 10 to 12 questions, which is about half the test. So I would really dive in into what you're doing. And then she says that's her worst section out of the 2. So she's doing better in reading comp. I'm now scoring between 17 to 18, right? Which once again, I would argue small data. Like, is this really a pattern? Or are you still roughly 19 to 22 and now you're having a few bad days mixed in there? So I don't think you're getting worse. I think you just probably weren't as good as you thought you were. They continue. I'm trying to employ our class objections, which for what's worth, when I read an argument, I give objections to it. Like, hey, that doesn't make sense because of this reason. I'm just saying like if someone says like, I'm going to the mall because today is a Tuesday. To which my objection would be, why does Tuesday mean you go to the mall? Like, what relevance does that have at all? And further, so that's a guide, and I think this person might be getting too married to them. But they say, I think I may be doing it wrong because I'm not feeling confident at all. I don't know if I'm getting to stress myself out ahead of the June exam, but I want to get back to -5 to -4 per section, which you're not that far off from. Because if you clean up a few mistakes, you're basically there. Like, I don't think you've gotten worse. I mean, this is so common where people think they're regressing. You're not regressing. You just were never truly a 19 to 22. You're probably truly like -8 to -6 or like -4. Like, people have wider ranges than you all perceive, which means that often people tend to overly focus on the good side and they tend to be like, I'm truly this. Like, I can't tell you how often I hear from someone scoring like, I'm scoring 170 to 172. I'm like, no, you're not, because no one is scoring 170 to 172. You're probably scoring like 162 to 172 if you're giving me that range, because people love to focus on the top end. But she says, I'm still trying to aim for that 170 in June or August. We should only pull up our score converter real quick. We have a score converter on heyfuturelawyer.com where you can plug in all your sections into a converter. It's heyfuturelawyer.com/calculator. So let's say you're scoring, I don't know, 21 questions right per LR section. And then you said you're better at reading comp. You didn't say what you are, but let's say you're at 23. you're at a 165 at that point if you're -4 across all of them. So that's not where you need to be. You're gonna have to pick up board points to get there, and that's even your best day. And then if you have a bad day, well, let's say you have that 17, right? We get you to a 159. So you're probably in like your range is probably from the high 150s to the low 160s right now. Although I am making an assumption with your reading comp, it's very possible that you're different on reading comp than I presumed. But I assumed you're getting like 23 right because you said you're better at reading comp. So yeah, I would definitely try to clean things up. The good thing is you're not that many points off. I think to expect a 170 on June is setting yourself up for disappointment because like realistically, you're gonna have to bump your range to all above 170 to guarantee it, which is getting you to a 175 average when you're realistically at like a 165. That's a 10-point real increase, which is probably not going to happen. As far as getting your range to including 170s to where it's possible, I think that's possible. You just got to understand a few more questions. Part of that is also the acceptance. I mean, not to like say we're alcohol or LSAT AA here, but like step one is admitting you have a problem. Too many of you don't admit you have a problem and you're like, oh, I'm crushing it. And it's like, no, you're just not. Like you're still missing. You're not understanding 10 and 12 questions. And in that, you can view that as two ways, which is one, I'm so stupid, or two, wow, that's awesome because I have so much I can figure out and there's so much I can learn and get better at. So I would really recognize that there's a ton you can learn, and in doing questions and like talking through them, because like you're in class, you can abuse me as in sending questions and make me hit my hours. We can talk through them and figure out what's going wrong because that is where you're going to get better. They continue. For example, on prep test 133, I identified some correct answer choices just from reading. But when doing the work, I got the wrong answer. So I went against my initial choices that made sense just by reading through. So I don't know what you mean by doing the work. I'm kind of worried. Like, I don't know what you mean. I'd have to look at those questions in isolation to actually see what you're doing. But that is concerning because like well, if you found the answer, I would hope you would get it right. So I'm worried that you're like over question typing it. For those of you that haven't been in LSAT class, I'm like the poster boy of hating questions. In fact, I think I might be the only person who really advocates question types don't matter on the LSAT. Not that they're not real, but rather that they get in the way of the comprehension. And this is what I mean. This is someone who appears to have done the comprehension on these three questions, yet then try to like question type strategy it and fuck themselves up because they were now focused on the question type as opposed to the comprehension. So anyways, they say, I think especially for assumption questions, and I've had this conversation about 3 times in the last week, there are 2 types of assumption questions. A lot of you don't understand that. And for what's worth, you don't need to know question types to know that. You just have to read the question. Too many of you just see assumption and then just like tunnel vision on that. A necessary assumption question where they ask you what the argument depends upon needs to be proven by the fact. It needs to depend upon it, rely upon it. On the other hand, you have sufficient assumption questions which prove the argument. These ones do not need to rely upon it. You just need to prove that conclusion. And you could write that down. Honestly, don't. The other solution to that is read the question when you get there because they're written in English. And if you read them, you'll still understand what they're asking you. Assuming you can read properly, which I do believe is a prerequisite for law school. So I guess I am assuming that you're a good reader, but if you're not, don't know that this is the field for you. They continue. I think especially for assumption questions, I may be employing the objection defense when I should treat them as must be truths. Yeah, I mean, so kind of, because like on an assumption question, a necessary assumption question, the answer is often defense against the objection. So by identifying the hole in the argument, which is really what I mean by an objection, you've identified what's wrong with it. And then it's pretty easy to find what would our author have to agree with. And that is where you're treating it like it must be true. I worry that you're actually question typing where like I always tell you guys, and I know a lot of you, it's one of the most frustrating parts of LSAT prep is that we say these things and I know that they don't click. It's why I'm so repetitive with a lot of these points, like do fewer questions, actually understand score fluctuation. It's because I say it and you guys hear it, but you don't hear it. Like you like kind of listen, but you kind of don't. Like I genuinely mean that you need to read the question because I mean, we'd have to look at the individual question, the answer you picked and why you fucked it up. But anyways, so yeah, that's my advice for her. And then we do have an addendum today, which is really fun by the looks of it. This one's not good. So this is an addendum and they have a 2.4 GPA. We are going to read it. This is titled, it says pain into purpose. And we're going to play a drinking game at home for those of you that are listening. And the drinking game is called excuses counting. So this person is explaining why they have a 2.4 GPA. So real quick, before we read it, we're going to lay out the outline for a GPA addendum. A GPA addendum is not meant to blame anyone other than yourself. It is to take accountability and talk about how you are different. So you want to say, I got X GPA in undergrad. Here's why that's not who I am today. It was 10 years ago and I'm now an adult and I take school seriously. And you can see that via my LSAT score. Because if you're like, hey, I was dumb, I got a 2.4, I didn't take it seriously, but I took the LSAT really serious. I'm a much more mature person. I got a 170. Like as such, my 2.4 holds me back, but hopefully you can see that I'm a diamond in the rough and that I might be overlooked. That's good. Alternatively, I had a really bad freshman year. I grew up and my past 3 years, I did better. That was my GPA addendum. I got a 2.9 my freshman year. I ended with a 3.6 because I got a 3.9 or higher my last 3 years of undergrad. So that's another thing you can focus on. What you don't want to say is, I got a 2.4, woe is me, which I believe is what this one goes. It has a title, Painted to Purpose. Let's read it. All right. First off, it is about it's 1.5 pages long. GPA addendum needs to be about 3 sentences. Like, seriously, I'm not kidding. 3 sentences, hard cap. And you guys don't do that, which is unfortunate, but it does indeed matter. So let's see. Over the last 5 years, I've experienced a whirlwind of trials and tribulations. Don't say that. Say what happened. Further, once again, probably don't say what happened. Just say, like, why. Start with, like, my LSAT GPA is a 2.4. However, insert the actual fact for why you're a good candidate, and then say, this is a better reflection of the student I am today. Something like that. They continue. From struggling with mental illness, so that's one excuse, and not understanding what it was, so I'd say that's like 1.5 excuses, to losing my sister, 2.5 excuses, and not knowing what losing my mind was. Okay, so we have 2.5 excuses, 2 sentences in, and losing your mind is not a point in favor of law school. They're going to say, like, okay, you make a lot of excuses and you're not mentally stable. They're not going to admit you. These are points against you. They continue. I started freshman year in a new place, so that's 3 excuses, and I was on my own. 4 excuses. When COVID struck, everyone had to adapt to a new way of life. All right, so I'd say that's another excuse, but also you at least caveat that everyone had to do it, so it's not as bad. I was working on campus twice a week for 2 hours and earning $14 per hour before COVID struck. So that's another excuse I would say, like, you're working. A lot of people are working. My boss never told me I was supposed to be still putting in my hours and I could have been getting paid. All right, so that's now you're blaming your boss for not getting paid. So that's another excuse, and also blaming someone else. So no. So I had no money. That's another excuse. I returned home, got a job with Instacart, then a position with DoorDash, and then a job with UPS, all while attending college, maintaining 5 classes. So you could say I worked full time in college while maintaining 5 classes, and that's why I got a bad GPA. It's not going to be very compelling. Like, they're not going to care. But already, this is so many excuses. Your sister died, you started freshman year, COVID, your boss didn't pay you, you have mental illness. Like, this is going to actively hurt you. This addendum gets you rejected. It doesn't get you admitted. This is not like, oh, this is not great, but like you can twist it. This is straight up moving you to the reject pile, which, like, let's be real, you probably were there with the 2.4. They're probably not looking at you that deeply outside of like kind of bottom schools. But this is going to get you rejected if you submit this. They continue. On December 1st, 2020, my older sister was murdered in front of me in my sophomore year of finals weeks. So there were a lot of prepositional phrases there in my sophomore year of final weeks on December 1st, 2020. So just writing content, or like content aside, which, like, first off, I'm really sorry to hear your sister got murdered. That's also not a point in your favor. That's another excuse. It doesn't belong in an addendum. Another thing is, you guys need to realize that this is a professional document, and you're not supposed to talk about family member deaths in a professional document. Like, it sucks. We've all had family members that have died. That is part of the human experience. Don't say that. Don't tell them. It's not appropriate. And you look like an unprofessional, unserious person when you talk about death of your family members in these documents. I think it's because I really do think it's a bleed over of, one, we as a society have gotten more comfortable talking about these things. And then two, in undergrad, I think people get rewarded for this shit. But this does not get rewarded in law school. They're like, why are you saying this? You're supposed to be an adult now. Like, in undergrad admissions, they understand you guys are 17-year-olds and don't have a filter. By the time you're applying to law school and trying to be a lawyer, you should not be looking like a 17-year-old who doesn't know what to talk about in an interview. Like, would you say this on a first date? If no, don't say it in an interview. And if you would say this on a first date, I would rethink your dating strategies. They continue. My world fell apart. Before she passed away, I just finally turned 18 and finally got to assess my mental health. So, like, once again, don't mention your mental health. That's not a good point. That was because I never wanted to talk to my parents about it. Turns out I have ADHD my entire life, which is why I cannot focus and have outbursts. Ooh, you cannot focus and have outbursts. Is this a reason to admit you to law school? So you can't focus, which is, that's, like, you guys do realize what lawyers do, right? Like, so many of you, it feels like you just like the idea of being in a suit and going to court. You guys know lawyers do paperwork all day, right? Like, that's, I don't know. It's just like, if you can't focus, don't go to be a lawyer, like, period. It's not going to work out. It's going to be a really bad time, let alone law school, where you have to read all day, every day for 3 years on end. Further, having outbursts, like, I don't know. I don't know exactly how that's going to be a problem, but I imagine it's going to be really hard to get hired. And further, law schools don't want someone who's going to have outbursts, because you're going to become a problem for behavior. And then the behavioral dean is going to come to you and be like, hey, why the fuck do we have this person at our law school? Who admitted them? How did they get through the doors? And then if they pull up your file and it turns out they admitted they have outbursts, that person's, like, on the line. So don't say you have outbursts, but they continue. Bladder issues and attention problems. Attention problems and focus are the same thing. Either way, you can't do school, which is going to be a giant problem in school. Which, like, I'm sorry, that sucks. Also, like, these are not points in your favor. You don't have to tell them the bad reasons. It's like if I was applying, like, let's say I go on a first date and I'm like, I have severe crippling anxiety. I will never be enough. I, like, still talk to people from high school. None of this is true, by the way. I'm just, like, trying to come up with, like, really bad reasons. Like, I'm going to cheat on you. Like, if you say these things, Like someone on first date is gonna be like, thank you for being honest. Also, we're not gonna have a second date because like that's crazy. Like I'm not gonna talk to you. This is you saying like you're gonna cheat on them and that you're like gonna go AWOL. So anyways, they continue. I never received aid before, and I've been suffering my entire life. So we're just gonna be done here. This is bad. I think you guys have gotten the point here. And yeah, so and then further, they blame their LSAT score in this GPA as well. So this is someone with a low LSAT, low GPA, at least to my understanding. Well, I know they have a 2.4, and I think they have a low GPA or a low LSAT score. And bonus points, they're telling you how they can't focus and have outbursts. Like you guys, I don't know where you get this from, but these are not reasons to admit you to law school. Like these get you rejected. I'm like genuinely curious where this person's from, but it's going to really hurt you. Like these are not going to be a point in your favor. And it's not meant to be harsh, but it is just like a matter of you guys get rejected when you do stuff like this. So, anyways, shall we end with anything? Do I have any? How long have we ran? Yeah, so I think I'll drop in actually another LSAT question with Madeline, just because I think those are worthwhile and that you can actually hear us talk through a few LSAT questions. So I'll cut to that. Hopefully it's a party, and I'll see you all next week.
Question 2. All Labrador retrievers bark a great deal.
So yeah, right off the bat, that very much so feels like a fact. Hypothetically, there's a weird LSAT argument where that could be a conclusion, but when they're leading with something and it just seems to be a description of the outside world, I'm expecting them to make some conclusion about that. So I'm like, okay, these dogs bark a lot. Does that mean we should get rid of them? Should the HOA ban them? Should we adopt Chihuahuas instead that bark less? Like they can go in a million directions. But what I do know at this point, and all that I know, is that these dogs bark a lot.
All St. Bernards bark infrequently.
Okay, so yeah, once again, a fact about the world. We know these dogs are less barky. Maybe they make bad like guard dogs. Maybe they should be owned in like senior communities where people need to sleep. I don't know. Either way, we have these dogs. They don't bark a lot. These other dogs do bark a lot. Let's see what nonsense conclusion they draw.
Each of Rosa's dogs is a cross between a Labrador Retriever and a St. Bernard.
So, okay, cool. Rosa has these mixes. It doesn't seem like the most traditional mix to have a lab St. Bernard mix, but okay, go off, Rosa, I guess. With this, I'm like, that's also a fact. Whether or not she has these mixes is not something we can argue with. But if they then make some conclusion about the barking, that's where I'm going to attack because maybe the genetics take over of the Labrador Retriever and her mixes bark a lot. Maybe they don't bark a lot. But what we know about is we know that St. Bernards bark a lot. We know that Labs bark a lot. Her dogs are mixes. We don't know anything about mixes. So if they draw any conclusion about her dogs, no matter what it is, it will be unproven.
Therefore, Rosa's dogs are moderate barkers.
Yeah, that's exactly what we thought that they might do, which is make some conclusion about her mixed dogs. We know her dogs are mixes. Our facts are about purebreds. So we have made this giant jump from the purebreds to her mixes, and you can't do that. Like it could be true. Maybe they're moderate barkers, but also maybe the genetics of the Labrador takes over, or the Saint Bernard, or maybe it's a coin flip, like depending on like what chromosome each dog gets. I have no idea. The point is
Yeah.
that they have not proven their conclusion. So I'm ready to say, hey Rosa, or not Rosa, hey like author, you have not shown how Rosa's dogs actually bark. All you have shown is that the purebreds bark a lot, or not a lot, but her dogs are not purebreds. So what gives?
All right. And they ask us which one of the following uses flawed reasoning that most closely resembles the flawed reasoning used in the argument above.
So yeah, in this argument, we're just going to look for the same flaw. This is technically called a parallel flaw question. Please do not write that down. But basically, they're just asking for what makes the same issue. And we know what the issue is because we just saw it. We just saw that they made this nonsense conclusion where in our premises, we had two things that are purebreds and they have these extreme outcomes. One of them barks a lot, then one of them barks not a lot. Then they say when we mix the two, they get a moderate outcome. And I'm like, well, what if the barking a lot takes over or the not barking a lot takes over? But either way, I would put this flaw something along the lines of when you mix two extremes, you get a moderate outcome. So
Yeah. So we
my
want
prediction.
the
Yeah.
the answer to encompass that. And what's important to note is in a question like this, the answer choices are going to talk about whatever they want to talk about. The answer choices are not necessarily going to be about dogs. In fact, it's highly unlikely that they're going to be about dogs. They're probably just going to pick all these random things to talk about. So we don't ever want to get lost in the sauce of like the actual topic of what they're discussing here. It's more important to, again, as Ben said, understand what is happening in the argument, or in this case, what's happening in a bad way in the argument, in a flawed way, that, yeah, just because we mix these two extremes doesn't mean necessarily that we get this blended outcome or this moderate outcome.
Yeah, and they can give it to us in a million ways. Like, for example, they could say, like, I don't know, Canada, or not Canada. Let's say the North Pole is really cold. The equator is really hot. Therefore, like Montana, which is in between the two, is moderately warm, which would be the same flaw. It is, well, I guess that's not mixing them. So that's kind of a bad analogy now that I say that out loud. I'm trying to think about other
mixing.
Yeah, it's I'm having a hard time. Well, I know what the answer is on this one. So like I don't want to say that because that's like kind of where my head goes, just
yeah, I was about to give an example, but I was like, it's too similar to the
yeah, maybe if you say like if you mix milk, which is good to drink, with lava, which is bad to drink, you'll get a moderately good to drink beverage, which is stupid because obviously
I'm pretty sure the lava is a non-starter there.
Yeah, you're gonna have real issues. So I'm like, okay, maybe, or like maybe like Everclear is super alcoholic. Hawaiian Punch is non-alcoholic. Therefore, if you have a 50-50 Hawaiian Punch Everclear drink, it's going to be moderately alcoholic. I'm like, no, you're going to be trashed if you drink that like Everclear Punch. Either way, though, we're looking for something along the lines of two extremes. When you mix them, you get something in the middle. So,
all right. So let's look at A. All students who study diligently make good grades. Okay, this sort of extreme. But some students, okay, right away, and again, you know, Ben, you can let me know what you think, but right away, this is suspicious because we need these two extremes. We would want all students who study diligently make good grades. All, you know, someone else or, you know, student, I guess, or different type of student or something doesn't get good grades. These are some students, and they're also getting good grades. We would want them to do the opposite. So right away, that is enough to, you know, cross that one out.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really good point about the all students. And also the other thing is they also make good grades. We want to say students, like all students who do not study diligently, get bad grades to have the
the opposite. Yeah.
Whereas we're just saying another way to get the same outcome, and hence, like, what's even the moderate outcome we're going to get? Like, they get moderately good grades. I mean, even that wouldn't make sense. I guess it would just be good grades. So,
or like I don't know, average grades or something. But yeah, it's not like. I think.
Well, and reading the rest of it, they say Jane studies somewhat diligently, therefore Jane makes somewhat good grades. It's close. If they had actually said all students who do not study diligently get bad grades, then this would be a valid like answer.
Yeah.
But because in that second argument, like Madeline identified, one, we don't say all the students, and then further, we just talk about them also getting good grades. That is enough to sink the whole ship on A.
I like what you did there. I think I always suggest this to people when, you know, you're going over questions, especially if you get it wrong, and understanding, you know, a wrong answer versus a correct answer. It can be really helpful to sort of do this exercise of what would the answer need to say instead to be correct, especially if it is kind of similar in some ways. Okay, we'll move on to B. All type A chemicals are extremely toxic to human beings. Okay, just like the labs bark a great deal. So far, so good. All type B chemicals are non-toxic to human beings. Again, so far, so good. It's like the other type of dog not barking. We have these two extremes. This household cleaner is a mixture of type A chemical and a type B chemical. Okay, just like Rosa's dog is a cross between the two dogs. Therefore, this household cleaner is moderately toxic. All right, they literally use the word moderate here. Pretty similar language. Not that that necessarily matters. They could have paraphrased it more. But the point is we have this, you know, mixing of the two that we can't necessarily do. And it kind of goes, I think, to the lava example, right? If one chemical is extremely toxic, I don't think any mix is going to be safe. So B looks pretty similar. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I like B as well. It's just intuitively, it makes sense, which is that, for example, the extremely toxic, it might not matter that you're mixing like the cyanide with the milk. Like it's still cyanide, and hence you're still going to have the issue. So from an intuitive standpoint, you're like, okay, that's still toxic. But even ignoring that and just going to the logic of it, we have two extremes. One is extremely toxic, the other is non-toxic. Then when we mix them, we get the moderate outcome. So the structure of it seems to line up perfectly with what they gave us. So I like B there.
Yeah, I actually think, like you said, the nature of the flaw is a bit more intuitively seen in B than the stimulus because, Rose's dogs could potentially be moderate barkers. Who knows, right?
Yeah, in
Um,
real life, if you have these two extreme dogs and you mix them, you probably are going to get
might
something.
be, yeah, but I think it's really hard to see like any situation in which the extremely toxic chemical is neutralized. Um, Okay, so looking like a good selection here, but of course we want to keep reading just to be sure. So answer choice C says all students at Hanson School live in Greene County. Okay, all students at Edwards School live in Wynne County. Okay, right away, especially when comparing this to B, I mean, there is a difference here. Is it necessarily two extremes, though? Like barking a lot, not barking a lot, extremely toxic, not toxic. This is just one county, the other county. Yeah, it's different, but in an extreme sense, yeah, that is a little bit of an issue to me. Let's keep
Yeah, I
reading.
agree.
Yeah,
It's like it's not those aren't extremes. Those are locations, which like fun fact, but also like I don't care. It's what I'm looking for is extremes, not like, oh, they live over in the east side of the state, whereas these people live in the west side. I mean, maybe if they had said that, and it's like therefore people live in the middle, but even that's like me helping out the argument. They just said locations, which are these counties. I know nothing about these counties in relation to one another. So I don't know if they like fall on different spectrums, whether it be geographically, politically. So any of that would be helping this argument out, and that is just not our job on the LSAT.
yeah,
So I'd probably get rid of it at this point. We'll read the rest.
yeah,
There's other instructional parts to see, but for reference, like if I were doing this test myself, I would be done with C. Like I'm not even.
yeah. And it goes on to say that members of the Perry family attend both Hanson and Edwards. These are the schools in these different counties. Therefore, some members of the Perry family live in Greene County and some live in Wynne County. That seems valid to
Yeah,
me.
this is a
This
logically
is
valid
valid.
argument. We
Yeah.
know that all the students of Hanson actually do live in Greene County. That is a fact. We know Perry family members attend Hanson. Just by connecting that, we know that therefore there must be these Perry family members that live in Greene County. The same thing goes for Edwards and Wynne County. So for one, we don't have our extremes. And then further, our conclusion is valid here. So even if we did have our extremes, this argument follows. So don't pick a valid argument for a flawed question. I feel like
Yes.
that should go without saying, but there are many ways to attack these wrong answers, and that is a great one, which is it does not fit. We don't have a flaw, therefore we can't have a flaw or a valid argument in our answers.
Yes. Answer choice D says all transcriptionists know shorthand, all engineers know calculus. Again, this is like C, the beginning of C. We don't have these extremes. There's just these two different skill sets held by different groups of people. So again, kind of like we said for C, I think Ben, you would agree that that was probably enough to not select it. But again, we'll keep reading. Bob has worked both as a transcriptionist and an engineer. Therefore, Bob knows both shorthand and calculus. Um, I would also argue that this is valid. Technically, you might argue, like, okay, if he's worked as a transcriptionist, is he actually a transcriptionist? But that's kind of really nitpicky.
Yeah,
Um,
or like maybe Bob had a stroke and forgot all his like past knowledge. But outside of like pretty nitpicky arguments,
yeah.
Bob has done these things and he should know them.
D is
But
quite similar to C to
yeah.
me.
Oh, and then the bigger issue is on these flaw questions, we know what we're looking for, which is
Yeah.
mixing two extreme things and getting a moderate outcome. There's none of that in D. That's like if we said Bob has worked with both these, therefore he sort of knows either. Even then, I don't think that would get us to our answer. But like either way, we don't have this moderate outcome. So I don't really care what D says. It's just it's not moderate. So like it's gone.
All right. And then E tells us that all of Kanisha's dresses are very well made. All of Connie's dresses are very badly made. Okay. This is starting off a bit better than C and D, I will say. Half of the dresses in this closet are very well made, and half of them are very badly made. Okay, now I don't like it anymore because
Right.
in our argument, it's each of Rose's dogs is a cross, not half of her dogs are the Labrador and half of the dogs are the Saint Bernard. So that's where this one dies. This answer choice. It goes on to say, therefore, half of the dresses in this closet are Kanisha's and half of them are Connie's. Which
Yeah,
also is not necessarily true.
Yeah, this is necessary sufficient. Like,
they could be Jane and Sarah's dresses. We don't know.
Yeah, and just intuitively, this should come off as nonsense because I imagine some of you listening are women and some of you own dress. I don't know, maybe you're a dude who owns a dress. It's still less likely. There we go. Cancel me over that. Anyways, the point is that it's one of those things where, like, yeah, Kanisha owns well-made dresses. Connie owns poorly made dresses. Are those the only well-made and poorly made dresses in the whole universe? According to this argument, they are. So we are confusing what are sufficient conditions, which is that if it's Kanisha's dress, it is well-made, with necessary, which is for it to be well-made, it must belong to Kanisha. This is a very common LSAT flaw, but just because it's flawed doesn't mean it's the answer we're looking for. What we're looking for is two extremes, moderate outcome. And E is not doing that. I did write a way to fix it, which is like if they had said these dresses belong to both Kanisha and Connie, therefore they are moderately well-made, that would have been our answer. But they don't give, well, even then it wouldn't be better than B. It would just be on par with B. But they don't say that, so it doesn't matter. It's worth thinking about how you could fix it, but also you don't want to get too caught up in the fixing it because, like, let's be real, I'm changing the answer. And if I'm changing the answer, that just means I can get rid of it. So
yeah.
If you enjoyed what we talked about today or learned something new, please leave a review or a rating. It really does help us out and helps us reach more people. If you have a question or anything you want talked about in the world of LSAT or law school admissions, you can always email support@heyfuturelawyer.com to get it in the podcast agenda. Just put podcast in the subject and we will talk about it on the show. Alrighty, that's all we have for today. So I will see you all next time.